I'd like to ask you about cryptocurrencies now. This is a raging debate now. The former Canadian Prime Minister Stephen Harper has recently said that he sees a potential for Bitcoin to become a reserve currency, although it won't supplant the dollar, he said. And Janet Yellen has argued that there's no place for crypto as a reserve currency anywhere because of cybersecurity risks, among other issues. Where do you stand on this debate?
Well, I stand on the position, I let the market work its way out. I want to repeal all legal tender laws. I want people to have a legal right to use currency any way they want. They do not have the right to use fraud or misinformation. And they can't become fraudulent because that's what the Federal Reserve is all about. But I want to get rid of that monopoly. But what's going to happen is up to the market. What is determined by the marketplace right now. Because the dollar is so vulnerable. That's why people are looking for alternatives. 6,000 years of history has shown many examples with the abuse of money, and gold's been around a long time. And usually when they abuse it, they usually go back to something tangible. Right now, there's another option, but Yellen is not going to be the protector of freedom of choice. There was somebody that made a coin and they called it a dollar when I was in my campaign. That guy, I think, ended up going to jail, and they took his gold from him because he used the word dollar. And don't mess around with the monopoly. And believe me, central bankers are very protective of their monopolies. But, when the cryptos just came out, I recall, and I thought it was Yellen, but it could have been Bernanke. Somebody asked a question, about the crypto, and they were pretty tolerant of it all. They weren't coming down and saying, "Oh, this is horrible." They weren't as cautionary and warning as Yellen is right now, because that means she thinks it's gaining ground. But I think only time is going to tell, and I'm frightened that the government is going to get involved like she would like to before the market really tests it, because they're not on the verge of doing what I want and repealing legal tender laws. But that's what you need. You need to get that out of the way if you really want to have competition. Let the market decide which one is best. But just as the authorities, the Federal Reserve gets involved, and the tax people get involved with the dollar. I remember 1971, it was 75 when gold was finally legalized again. We weren't allowed to own gold since 1933. Finally, in 1975, we were. And the first thing they did, because the gold price had been pushed up, and everybody was excited about it. The gold is coming out, prices are going to soar again. But on that very day, in order to tamp the market, the Federal Reserve and the Treasury dumped gold, and also the IMF dumped gold like crazy to make sure that those speculators didn't have any benefit. But they will interfere, is what my point is. They have in the past. They fixed gold at $35 an ounce from 1932 or 33, all the way up to until it broke down in 1971. So they will do what is necessary to protect their monopoly. That's why even gold, if I debate it and say, watch out, crypto, they'll come for you. And they say, yeah, but what about gold? They'll come for the gold people too. They proved they will. And so when I think about that and the frustration, I come down with one answer. Where should I put my energy? And that is the restoration of a free society, to allow us to live in a free society and be rewarded for our effort. That's the only thing that can sort all this. When the politicians are given free rein, like they've been given, who knows what's going to happen? They will operate in the interests of the deep state, and the very wealthy people will get the benefits. And unfortunately, they're very powerful, and they control so much already.
Dr. Paul, I'd like to ask you, post-Bretton Woods, have you observed any evidence of governments or central banks trying to fix the price of gold?
Not the kind that I could take it to the court and prove it. But I have a personal belief. Yes, I think they do. The President's Working Group on Financial Markets, which was established by executive order by Ronald Reagan after the crash of 87, it gives them license to do that, and their job is to protect, and their nickname is the Plunge Protection Team. So if I think that every once in a while I'll see, well, boy, tomorrow gold should go up, and then all of a sudden you might see it drop $30. I think I get involved, but I don't have proof of that. But it's just the way it is, and they're capable of it. Any group that was capable of artificially fixing the price of gold at $35 an ounce when the market was left to its own, it soars to $800, and then it took a while to sort it all out. So it is their nature. They've done it before. In the old days, it was just, we'll manipulate its value by clipping the coins and adding another metal to it, dilute the metal. So governments are authoritarians. That's why you want the government out of it, but then you have, if it's turned over to private sources and you have no monopoly of the Federal Reserve, you still have the problem of people being honest. So, like it was said at the time of our Constitution being written, that we would have a republic and it would work, but it requires a moral society. And that's one thing we still need. Right now, I think that's a big issue. And when I think about, the frustration of not getting to the point where I want, that the effort should be on the emphasis on a free society. But that to me is a moral issue as much as an economic issue. Okay.
And foreign policy now, NAFTA in China, Biden's administration, what do you anticipate he will do with our trade partners and allies and adversaries, and what should he be doing?
Less. I don't like all this stuff. The Chinese aren't, model citizens, and they do their thing. But my responsibility as a citizen and as when I was a member of Congress is to deal with our problem. And so I would try to get people to stop getting involved in sanctions. I believe in free trade, and I don't like that at all. And I say, yeah, but look at what they'll do. They'll interfere in our election. We've interfered in, we have people in 150 countries. We interfere in their elections all the time. And so pointing that out, I would gain supporters, but I would also gain some people who, well, we got to keep this guy away. He's telling the truth about what our government does. So yes, China's imperfect. The freer the trade and the more open it can be, the better. Sometimes I think it's sour grapes because we've been we print money. It's the reserve currency of the world, still works half decently, and we spend it and we buy their stuff. Nobody forces us to buy stuff from China, and they have a lot of our dollars there. So if they come in and start trying to capture a market or start capturing, the precious metals, not the precious metals, but the rare metals, they say, oh, we got to do it. We got to stop them. Well, it seems to me like they were acting too much like capitalists. They sold us the stuff. They took our money for it, and now they're spending it. So I think that you have to be very cautious in dealing with China. There's no doubt about it. But I think, if anything, there's more bashing of China than need be.
Yeah, it's interesting how one of the criticisms of China is that they censor their citizens on social media and public forums. But here in the United States, it's the opposite. We have private enterprises censoring politicians. I'd like to finally close our discussion by talking about censorship, because I know you have a lot of thoughts about that. President Donald Trump's Twitter was banned. I wonder, look, if I were a user of Twitter, though, if I somehow violate their policies, I can understand that they should be, removing me, but I'm not the president of the United States. Do you think private enterprises should have the authority or the moral obligation to be censoring politicians in our day?
Well, if it were truly a free market operation on the social medias and Twitter and all, but that's an arm of government. They're there to provide very, very massive amounts of information, supposedly for national security reasons. Our government, built the internet with their money. Our government uses the internet and the social media to get information. They still get a lot of money. I think it's not private. If it's private, they should be able to censor anybody they want. To 230 regulation, it should be repealed. They shouldn't be exempt. They should be sued if possible. And I think if it developed in a free market, it would be a property rights issue. And sorting this out, that if you and I were looking for a place, we'd want somebody to say, look, we're going to provide this service, and this is your guarantee, this is our contract. We're never going to give your information out, and it would be sorted out rather quickly. But I think any big groups like this that get monopoly control over an issue, you can almost guarantee that they've gained a lot of the control from the government. So it's ironic that the government helped build those social media. At the same time now, they're turning it back on some government officials. But you know that 230 issue was meant to say, and the people who had the social media say, well, that'll open up the doors. We won't have to worry about it. We can give more service to more people, and so that'll broaden the service. But what happened is, because they had the power, they didn't use it to broaden their service. They used it to exclude some people and, of course, provide service just for their special customers. So it backfired. So they were in big business was in bed with the big tech and the social media. But if it's developed in a private market, it would be a property rights and a contractual issue, and a first rights amendment where you can't just turn people off if you have a contract. I'm not going to do that to you. This is the procedure if we think you've so overstepped your bounds.
Any final words to the younger people watching our program, to the millennials and generations Ys and Zs that should be growing up into model citizens? How should they do that?
Well, I think the most important thing is, if there was one little thing that I said that, perked their inquisitiveness, that'll look into it. The one thing that I have been thankful over my life has been that some people are born to be inquisitive. And I think I had a lot of that in. How do things work? What about capitalism? I remember as a teenager, I was questioning, subsidies to some of our corporations. And I remember, controls under war conditions and all. No, I think studying and understanding, if liberty sounds like an option, they have to study it first and understand it and know that the country, the world, and everybody else is better off, and you really believe in it. And that to me is the most important thing. And you say, well, then what are they going to do with it? And I was taught, and I firmly believe, that if you have a message and it's worth its salt, somebody will seek you out and use you. And that's what will happen. And people ask me when I'd go to college campuses, they say, yeah, this sounds good. What do I do? What do I do? Ron, tell me what I have to do. And I said, do whatever you want. That's all. Do what you want. If you believe in it, everybody's gonna. You can become a radio announcer. Get on the radio, a talk show, write newsletters, go get a teaching job. Just think how terrible the universities are. Sneak into a university and teach freedom rather than all this socialism. There's 1,000 different ways you could make the effort, and the individual has to decide exactly how they want to do it.